Hi everybody and welcome back to my studio. I'm Heather Robertson at Katy Designs and welcome to another live session of crafting. We have lovely Christine manning all the comments and Ian as well in the office manning all the comments. So if you have any questions, just pop them down there and they'll do their best to answer anything for you, as well as popping links to any products I mention in those comments as well. So today we are going to be looking at our mould of the month, which is our daffodils, and we're going to be making a lovely wreath and some wire daffodils as well. So let's pop over to my overhead camera and let's get started. So I'm going to take you through the process of making each of these daffodils using our daffodil mould, and this mould will make daffodils in two different sizes. So you've got your larger daffodil and your smaller daffodils as well. So this will really enhance your design so that nothing is exactly the same size, and you can add some creative interest with just by changing up the size of your daffodils. Now, daffodils come in a multitude of different colours. When I started looking at what colours to use, I was really surprised at how many different colours there are. So you get orange and white, you get yellow and white, you get multiple tones of yellow. So you can change up your design and add interest by changing the intensity of the colours of your daffodils as well. So for these, also, yep, this is the wired daffodil, and towards the end of this video, I'll be showing you how to wire this, and it's really simple to do. So I'll take you through the steps of wiring these as well and creating your own little bouquet, especially for those of us who suffer from hay fever. This is a lovely way of giving a bouquet of flowers without having to worry about sneezing all the time. So let's pop those daffodils off to one side and have a look at our wreath. So what we're going to need to make our wreath is we're going to need some cardboard, for the back of our smaller hoop. We're going to need our tangled hoops. So I'm using the tangled flower circular hoops. They come in three sizes. So they come in three sizes like this, unpainted, all pre-cut for you. And what I've done is I've just given them a coat. I'll just pop my finished wreath to one side. I've given them a coat of white paint. Now the reason being is if you just add a little bit of white paint to the surface of your MDF, then it's going to pick up any other colour that you put on there will look lovely and bright, and it won't be muted by the dark tone of the brown tone of the MDF. So you're going to need, I'm using two hoops for this. I've used the larger one, which is about 25 by 25 centimeters, and the medium hoop, which is about 15 by 15. So that gives a nice sized, a nice interest and difference in size. I've stuck some cardboard onto the back of the smaller hoop or the medium hoop, and then I've tied these together with some green ribbon to match the colour of my my hoops. So I'm just going to I've just popped a loose hanging ribbon on there for now, and we'll come back to that later. So let's pop our hoop to one side, and I'll show you what I mean with colouring. So over here, you can see I've added some green paint or some green ink to the brown side of the MDF, and on the side that I painted white previously, it's much brighter. So for that, you can use paint, but I find the easiest way to decorate your hoops is by getting a permanent ink, so not a water-based ink, because you don't want this to smudge when you're starting to add your glues and paints and that sort of thing, or if any moisture gets onto it, you don't want the ink smudging. And it really is just a simple case of just wiping on the ink with your ink pad, and it's beautifully bright. So it's not so bright if I do it on the brown, but on the white you get a lovely, lovely bright green. So just do that all over your hoops, leave those to dry, and then we can and then tie your two hoops together. Then now we need to start making our daffodils. So as I said, for this wreath, let's just bring this back in. I opted to have 3 white daffodils and a couple of multi-toned yellow daffodils as well. So I've got 3 large yellow ones on the bottom and 2 small yellow daffodils, and then I've got 1 large white daffodil on the small hoop, and 2 white daffodils on the small hoop as well. So 2 small daffodils. So 2 small and 1 white, 1 large white, 2 small yellow, 3 large yellow. And let's have a look at our daffodils. So first thing you want to do, or first thing I like to do, is make a fan veiner. You don't have to do the step, but I find that when you're making the cones, it gives a beautiful, let me just see if I've got a darker one here that you might be able to see, gives a lovely texture on the inside, and also gives a bit of a lip on the outside of your daffodil cone. But first, let me show you the construction of the daffodil as well, just so you can see what parts you're going to need. Otherwise, it can be confusing. Okay, so your mould will consist of 4 parts. So you've got a propeller, 2 propellers, and 2 fans, and you've got a large propeller, small propeller, large propeller, small propeller, large fan, small fan, and these will make your 2 different sized daffodils. So if I bring some finished daffodils in, you'll see the difference. Let's see. So that's the large and that's the small. And to assemble these, you will need 2 sets of the propellers in the same size and your cone. And basically these layer one on top of the other. Oops. Like that. And then your daffodil, your cone sits in the middle. So the first thing you need to do is make these cones. Now you do need to make these in advance and leave them to dry, so that they're easy to eat, so that they don't distort when you add the petals. But first we're going to start off by making a fan. So this is your texture piece. Actually, I don't need to show you how to make that because it's exactly the same as making the daffodil cone. But basically, make a fan and leave these to dry. I'm going to pop those to one side. And then generally speaking, when you're making your daffodil, the cone or the trumpet of your daffodil is usually a darker colour than the petals, usually. They don't have to be, but it's usually a darker colour. I find I don't need to use corn flour on the mould for this, but I do like to use, if you're using this for craft, just a tiny little bit of lip balm, the tiniest amount, just to help the clay stick in the mould. And we're doing the cone first, Heather, not the propellers. Right. Then press your clay, working from one side to another, working your way from bottom to top, basically. I like to press the clay, rock it in the mould, so I'm pulling it away from the edges as I go. Slide off the excess. Let's just make sure there's enough clay in there, make sure that's all nice and even. And when you're not using your clay, cover your clay so that it doesn't dry out. Then this is the important step. You need to make sure that you've put corn flour um, on the fan piece that you're using for your texture. Now you can skip the step if you don't want to do this. That's absolutely fine. I've put some corn flour into some t-shirting here, or an old sock. I really want to make sure that this is not going to stick to my clay, because this is air dry clay, so it does stick to itself, and you want to ensure that that doesn't happen. Press that onto into the fan, and then release that from the mold. Then there are several ways that you can join this together. You can carefully roll this together like that, and using a large paintbrush or sculpting tool. I've got one here, so you could use a cone sculpting tool like this and wrap your clay around the sculpting tool like that before gluing it in place. Alternatively, the thing I found the easiest thing for me was I made a cone out of some paper. So I made a cone like this, like these, out of some paper and some tape, or some card and tape. So just cut a circle of card, cut that in half, and then roll this into a cone. And then secure that with some sticky tape. And there you'll have basically a trumpet mold for the trumpet of your daffodil. So this allows you to wrap and secure the cone, and helps it be less fiddly when assembling this together. The other thing you're going to need is a little bit of PVA glue, and just put a little bit. You don't need too much. A little bit of PVA glue against the edge of the cone, and then join those two pieces together, being careful that you don't smudge that lovely detail. And to help with that as well, if you use our angled tweezers that we have on our website, I find, for me, you could use a toothpick to help secure these edges together, but I find the angled tweezers work really well in just pinching those two edges together, and you still get the same texture that you would get from the fan on that mold. And there you have your cone. If you want to, you can open up those edges slightly as well, and then pop this on some paper towel to dry. So I just, helping to keep that shape, just pop that on some paper towel, and then leave those for the afternoon or overnight. Just leave these to dry. And I've got some small ones here as well that have all been left to dry. So there we go. So yeah, leave that to dry, put those to one side, and then when these have dried, we will come back and assemble our daffodils. So put that one over there, and I'm only going to make one daffodil today, so that we've got time to assemble everything for our wreath. So let's move all those to one side. Now with this one, I've also added a pearl in the center, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So let's see, now we need to make the propellers. So let's just take some clay. Now you could just put a large lump down and spread it out, but then I find it gets a bit messy, and it's a bit difficult to get to stop it falling out of the mold each time. So what I like to do is do them in stages. So I'll start with one. Just take a small ball of clay, roll it into a bit of a teardrop, press that down into the mold, and pull off the excess. And then don't leave that exactly where it is, and do the same with the next side. So I'm going to pop that in the mould. There we go. Pull off the excess, and then do the same on the other side, on the third one. If you don't have enough clay, just add a bit more in, it doesn't matter. I'm using Hearty Soft Air Dry Clay today, and I'm using the white Hearty Soft clay with a little bit of yellow and sometimes a little bit of orange mixed in with the yellow just to tone it down just a tad. Give that flex, and there you have your first propeller. I do have some already made, but let's just show that again. I find it's easiest if you work your way from the center to the tip of each petal. I find there's less distortion that way. It doesn't slide out of the mold as easily, because as you're pushing it up to the tip of each petal, the clay gets a bit thinner, so kind of keep it thicker towards the center, and if it's going to be thin anywhere, have it thinner towards the tips of the petals. It's a bit thin there, so I'm just going to add some more clay back in. There we go. Give your mould a flex, and out pops your next propeller. Pop your clay over there to dry. Now you'll notice there's no right or wrong way to do these, but you do find, I think one petal seems to, yeah, you can kind of see the top and the bottom really. These two petals seem to be slightly closer together, so make sure you've got them kind of the same, turn it round, lay that on top of each other, and then with the back of a paintbrush or a sculpting tool, just make a small well, not too deep, just a small well in the center of those petals. I'm adding just a tiny bit of PVA glue. I've got a little fine tip nozzle here. It's just got thin PVA glue in there. And then my dry comb, I'm going to place straight on top, right in the center, like that, and then just press that down. You can actually see the glue coming up in the center there, but that doesn't matter. And the petals start to lift. Now you could just leave that flat like that, but I find if you go around and you just add a little bit of shape to these petals just by kind of slightly bending them. The Hearty Soft clay is so lightweight that it will hold its shape. And if you want to define that, you can always just press the clay around the base of the daffodil, and there you have your shaped daffodil. Turn these upside down onto some paper towel, and then just leave that to dry. So leave that to dry overnight or for an afternoon, however long it takes for that to dry. And then we can come back to our wreath. So let's put the daffodil to one side. Where am I going to put you? Running out of space here. Got lots of stuff on the go here. Okay. And let's have a look at the daffodils that we're going to be using. So these are all the daffodils that I'm going to assemble onto my wreath. And I'm going to add a pearl. You could use little gemstones or micro beads for this as well. That will also work. But I want to pop that pearl in the center there. So I'm going to use a little bit of clay, a tiny little bit of clay, and a little bit of PVA glue. So you can use tacky glue for this as well, but it's just basically any water-based glue. Then I'm going to pop a tiny bit of clay in there, usually the same color as as the trumpet, in case it starts poking out the side. And the reason I'm putting the clay in the bottom there is because the bead doesn't go all the way down to the bottom of the cone. The bead is bigger than the cone. Pop some more PVA in there. And then using your tweezers, you don't have to use your tweezers, you can use your fingers for this as well. Just pop that bead. There we go. Oh, I don't want the holes showing, so I wanted the holes on the side. Pop your bead in there and just press that down so the glue wraps around it a little bit. And there you have your pearl inside your daffodil, and leave that to dry. So I'm going to pop these back in here. The next thing we need to add will be the leaves for our wreath. That's the word I'm looking for, wreath. Right, so you have two options here. You can, if you wanted to, use this petal section here of the daffodils to add some leaves to your mould. Or you could, this is our pansy mould. We've got some lovely leaves on the pansy mould, and we've also got some a whole host of leaf textured moulds in our collection as well. So have a look at what we've got. But today I'm going to have a look at using this, the daffodil mould for the leaves, as well as maybe a couple of leaves from the pansies as well. So let me grab those leaves now. I've already made some up, and I've got some daffodil pieces assembled here as well. Now I made these in advance, but I kept them inside a plastic bag, because when I'm adding my leaves to my wreath, I want them to be nice and soft so that we can press the daffodils into something on the wreath. It helps it to stick just a little bit more easily. And these are the beautiful leaves from the pansies. I love the texture on those. They're so pretty. So let's move that. I keep saying let's move things to one side. I'm always running out of space on my desk. Right, I am going to grab my glue, and we will add a picture into the center here once we've finished assembling our wreath. So I'm using a dimensional glue here. You can use a tacky glue as well, whichever, or regular PVA, whichever works best for you. And I'm going to add this to the back of each daffodil as I add it to the wreath. But in the meantime, I want to put a little bit of glue over my wreath. This is where I'm going to stick the leaves and any clay that I need to add for my daffodils. This is just so it's got something to stick to. Okay, not much, just a little bit there. And let me grab some green clay. Okay, so there are two ways of making the leaves here. You can make them as individual leaves, well, three ways really. You can make it as a triple petal with 3 leaves, or we can make just 1 leaf like that, and then just cut off the bits that you don't want. And there we have 1 leaf ready to go. Or you can do a couple of leaves at the same time. So we'll just press that into the mould. Press that into the mould. Tear off what we don't need. Flex that out, and then just fold those over each other, and then you've got 2 leaves together in a little heart shape, or actually it looks like a fishtail as well. That would make a lovely little fishtail. So let's put the mould to one side and start assembling. So I like to keep a little bit of yellow clay, the same colour as my daffodils, to hand. And we're going to add a little bit of foliage to our mould here, or to our wreath. So I'm going to start. Let's just make sure they all fit for starters. So I'm going to add them about there. So I'm going to. This is why I like the leaves to be nice and soft, because they've still got some movement to them, and we can still move them around. So let's just make sure this is all going to fit. Let's see. I want to make sure that these two here are central. So let's just make sure the centre's there. That goes there, that goes there like that. Okay, and then this is where I'm going to use a bit of dimensional glue. I'd avoid using hot glue because the hot glue will dry out over time and won't, and you may find your pieces fall off. But another little tip is just add a little bit of clay where you want some extra dimension or where there's a bit of a gap, and this will help to kind of hold things in place. So if you don't have a dimensional glue, you could use clay instead. So we've already got some glue, regular glue on there. You could use yellow or you could use green for this if you're wanting to make it look like extra foliage. And let's just press those in there like that. So that leaf there. Okay, I've got a bit of a gap here. So I think what I'm going to use for this is I've got a couple of pansies from our pansy mould. I'm going to add these for a little extra splash of colour. And pink and purple always complement yellow and orange really well. So there we go, just a little extra splash of colour. And let's just move that leaf up a little bit. There we go. And if we wanted to, we could add in a couple of extra leaves. Oh dear, my glue's making a noise. Let's see. And because the clay is still nice and soft and hasn't fully dried yet, you can still manipulate it and shape it around your wreath and hold that in place. So that's not going anywhere. Now we can start adding them to the bottom as well. And this is where you will find having some clay to help you stick this down will really help. So let's add a bit of glue. You can always wipe off any excess glue that you don't need. And let's have a look. So I want 3 large daffodils first. So I'm going to pop those leaves down first and grab my first large daffodil. Let's see. Yeah, I want a nice dark yellow one in the centre. I want to make sure I can still show you that wired daffodil as well. So I'm just speeding up just a tad. Add a little bit of green clay there. And then press this down into the green clay. And you can see there how the clay has squished into, let me just turn this around. The clay is pressing into the wreath, so you're going to have a bit of extra grip or an extra purchase there. So you're less likely, your daffodils are less likely to fall off. I'm just making sure that's central. Getting glue everywhere here. Then I'm going to place some more leaves down. Let's just see where I want that to go. So I want those leaves. So I'm basically I'm placing my daffodil where I want it to go, and then I'm seeing where the gap is and where the leaves will need to go. Press some green clay there, and press your daffodil into the clay. Let's test that one again there. So that I want those leaves to fit there. Press the green clay. Let's put a little bit more green clay there. I'll just slide that closer into there. Lovely. And then let's just add our small little daffodils here to the side. So I'm going to add again another little blob of green. You don't have to use clay for this. You could just use a dimensional glue, your silicone glues, pin flare glues, all those types of things. You could use that. But if you don't have any of that and you've just got clay, you can use your clay for this. Use what you have. And let's just add a couple more leaves into the mix there. Oops, getting glue everywhere. But that's the fun of crafting. It's good to get messy sometimes. Let's grab a paper towel or a wet wipe. And this is why it's good to use a permanent ink, because if you're wiping this and this was a water-based ink or an oxide type ink, it would just come off. Give the back a bit of a wipe. There we go. And there you have your wreath, but it's still missing something. Now on the one that I made here, I've used a decoupage, gorgeous little duck, chick and rabbit decoupage, and I'll show you some of the decoupage sheets that we've got and some of the choices that we've got. Let me grab some of the ones that I've already assembled. Now if you wanted to, you could put a family photo in there, or you could write a happy Easter or happy birthday message or happy spring, or whatever message you want to add in there you can add. But let's have a look at the decoupage sheets that I've got here. I've got a couple. So there's this lovely set, the 3D die cut decoupage Spring and Easter, and this has got multiple designs, some of which I've got to show you these ones. These ones are perfect to go on your small wreath. So you could glue that one down, or you can glue that one down to your. In fact, I think I am going to use this one. Let's just add a little bit of glue to this. Very messy with my glue today. Just add that, and there instantly you have a lovely mini wreath with some gorgeous flowers on that, and that comes out of that decoupage set. That was the Spring and Easter decoupage, and that also includes this lovely little collection of friends, Easter friends or springtime friends there. Then we've also got the option of, let's have a look at some other options. We've got, this set is lovely. So you can choose whether to, if I want, where's my wreath gone? Here we go. So if I wanted to add those chicks into the center there, I could do that, or you can add that to its backing paper and pop that in there as well. We've also got the spring lambs, which would work really well. This one I've cut smaller. I've cut it into a circular shape, with a rabbit on there. I think that looks lovely, so I might use that one. Have a look in a minute. That one is part of the Easter animals and spring florals. So you've got your chicks, your rabbits, you've got your chicks, your rabbits, and your sheep there, or your little lambs there as well. So that's a really, really lovely set to go for, and it's also got a whole bunch of decoupage flowers. And then you've also got this lovely set, which is the Cute and Cuddly Bears set, and for that one I've got this, so that you've got a little rabbit holding some flowers for mum, you've got a little teddy bear, two bears hugging each other, and then you've got a bear with a bunch of daffodils. So I might actually go for this one today. So, and these are some butterflies from the first collection that I showed you. So I think, yeah, I think I'm going to use this teddy bear. So you could use foam pads on the back of this. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue. And pop that in the middle. And let's just add a couple of butterflies to this as well. So these little butterflies are on foam pads, so they're going to stand up, they're going to stand out. So there we have a lovely wreath, but there is just one thing missing from this, and that's a little bow. So I'll just put some glue dots on this bow that I made earlier. You could use hot glue for this, or PVA, but I thought this would stick better today. So a little yellow ribbon, and this is why I did this loosely. I've already tied the two hoops together, but then I've added an extra ribbon here as well. Glue that bow down. And then let's just use my hanging ribbon to help hold. Let's just pull this through properly. There we go. If you use your hanging ribbon to help hold your decorative ribbon in place, it just holds really well and stays in place better. And there you have your hanging ribbon, and it looks like it's all wrapped around your decorative ribbon as well. And there you have your wreath. 1, 2, 3, really easy to put together. Being careful just to make sure you don't knock anything until it dries. Just make sure those are all nicely secure. And there you have a wreath. So I will take a picture of this after today's live, and we'll make sure we add this to the group and our page, so you can see these two side by side and see what they look like. And have a look at our videos online on how to assemble your daffodils. We have several different videos showing you different ways to assemble them. They are very easy to assemble. Very quickly, I'll show you. I won't mould the daffodil, but I'll show you very quickly how the pansy fits together as well, because it goes so well with this mould. So with the daffodils, as I said, you've got your leaves in two different sizes. You've got your pansies. You've got leaves in two different sizes and flowers in two different sizes. On here, I used the small pansies on this wreath today, and that's the larger pansy, so you can see the difference in size, and they assemble together very, very easily. So you've got your main petal, your top petal, your middle petals, and your little heart-shaped bottom petal. Now you don't have to use two. I like to have two top petals because that's what they look like in real life. plus your center petal, plus the bottom petal. But if you just want to use one instead of two petals on the top, you can do that as well. So I like to use a little bit of glue here just to help hold that together. Then a little bit of glue on my center petal, and then a little bit of glue on that bottom petal. And again, with the back of a paintbrush or a sculpting tool, just create a little bit of it. Press that down in the center. Pop a little bit of glue in the center there. And your pollen. And there you have a little pansy. So you can add that to your wreath as well. They complement each other really, really well. And here are the leaves to go with it. So, oops, there we go. So you just add a couple of leaves to that. And create some beautiful floral pieces. So here I've wired some. So these were, pardon me, my throat's getting quite dry. Let me just take a sip. Okay, so over here, I've used the pansies and just wired them with a bead and popped them in a flower pot. Alternatively, you could create a pot lid like this. So this is just our wood slice mould, and I've just piled a whole bunch of pansies on top. And you could do this with the daffodils as well. So I'm going to move those to one side, and now I'm going to show you how to wire a daffodil. So I think we've still got time for this, so I'll be quite quick. So for this you are going to need, pardon me, you're going to need your daffodil, and you're going to need, I like using some of these paper quilling strips. These are the 10mm, and I'm using the lush green. We do have a leaf green as well, which is slightly darker, but this I love using this lush green. It's just a really nice spring green colour. So you're just going to need one strip of this per daffodil. You'll need your daffodil, dried daffodil, and you're going to need a bead. You're going to need some floral wire, and we do have some starter packs on our website. We've got starter packs in white and in green in all the different sizes that you will need. And I'm going to be using a 22 or 24 gauge wire as my thinnest wire. So the higher the number, the higher the number, the thinner the wire. Basically, you need to use the thickest wire that you can get through your bead. And I'm going to put my bead right in the center of my wire. I just fold that back on itself. And then stop twisting this. Use your thumbs to guide the wire. So as you twist, pull and go down the wire. This will keep the wire nice and straight. Pull that all the way down. So we're going to need that. We'll also need a thicker wire. This one I think is a 20 gauge wire, and we're just going to need 2 halves of this. So just cut that in half with some wire cutters, and these will form the stem of your daffodil. Make a hole through the center of your daffodil with a pokey tool or a toothpick or needle of some kind, but you want to have a hole through the center. This is where our wire is going to go. And you'll need, we're going to start with some green floral tape. We'll get to the leaves in just a moment, which is where we'll need the quilling strips. So start wrapping your wire all the way around, or wrapping the tape all the way around the wire. If you give your wire, your tape a bit of a stretch, that activates the glue in the wire, and then you can, so I'm doing it at an angle, you can wrap this all the way down your wire and it sticks to itself. Now if you find it's getting too sticky for your fingers, just use a bit of corn flour on your fingers, this will help. And tear off any excess as well. I'm going to add a bit more to the top here, not too much. There we go. Now this we're going to slide through our daffodil. So let's pull that through the centre, nice and taut, not too hard, but you want to get that through. Then I'm going to make this little membrane piece here, and I'm using white, I'll be using some white tape for this. You could use green. If you don't have any white, you can use green, but we do have the starter wire packs in green and white, and the wire packs include some of this tape as well. Then take your scissors, so take a small piece of the white tape, not too long, and just cut a petal shape. I don't know if you can see that, it is quite thin. Just pop some corn flour on there if it's getting too sticky. And then run your nail through the centre, and you're going to get that lovely curled edge. I almost forgot to wire these in, so we're going to need to tape these wires in before we add that membrane as well. So grab some more green tape. I think the pollen count's quite high today. Trying not to sneeze. Right. I like to use three wires here because that makes it rounder. If you use two, it'll seem quite square, but if you're taping 3 wires together, you're going to get a much rounder stem. And just tape those additional wires to the stem, and this will give your stem some rigidity and some it won't make your daffodil too floppy. There we go. And again, we're going to take a little bit more green tape, and we're going to start adding, and we'll add this membrane as well. So I've got that quite high up. It does stick to itself, so just give that a bit of a twist and wrap the tape around, and then you can go in with your pliers or your fingers, whichever, and just tilt the head of your daffodil. And there you've got your daffodil. But let's give this give it some leaves. So just taking some stickiness off my fingers with the with some corn flour. So if you take your quilling strip, as I said, I'm using the 10mm width, so it is quite a thick width, but this is perfect for your daffodil leaves. Just cut this in half. It's longer than you need, but that's fine. You can cut it in 3 if you want to, and fold this in half. So you could use a scoring board for this to get that center line. Fold it in half, and you're going to end up with a piece like that. So that's once you've folded it in half. Then with your scissors, we need to cut the bit that's going to be attached to the stem. So you need to cut straight up, so you've got a nice thin line, and then curve out. So you've got that kind of shape. That's the bit that we're going to attach to the stem. And we also want to make sure that the tip is nice and rounded, so it's a bit like a spear shape. And you're going to get that lovely shape there. Now what I like to do is just add a little bit of double-sided tape to this. So I've got leaves in multiple lengths over here. So I'm going to use one short one and one long one for this. And you can see I've just added some double-sided tape here. So I'm going to use that one and that one. I like to use two leaves per flower, because when you start adding them together, it just gives that lovely. There's not too much foliage there. So peel off your double-sided tape and decide where you want the first leaf, where you want that first leaf to sit, and wrap that. So the double-sided tape will help hold that in place. Then take a little bit of your floral tape and wrap your floral tape around your leaf, just to the point where you want the leaf to be emerging from the stem. And then you can just give that a little bit of a curl with your finger if you want, your thumbnail if you want to do that. And let's just take this one off as well. Let's add, I want this one to be slightly to one side and a bit lower. So there, the double-sided tape does help stick those leaves to the stem instantly. You can use glue for this, but I find it seems to slide around when you use glue. And again, with your floral tape, just wrap that around the base of that leaf. Make sure everything's nice and secure. Give that a little bit of a curve. And there you have your wired daffodil. And then you can put these together in a bunch if you want to. 3 makes a really nice number to tie together. Wrap some ribbon around that. Trim off the edges, trim off the tips with your wire cutters so that they're all nice and neat. I'm going to have bits of wire. I'm going to find bits of wire around my studio later. And then just tie those together with a little bit of ribbon, just like that. Sorry, that was off camera there. So just tie that together with a little bit of ribbon, and then you've got your little bouquet of wired daffodils. And I've got some smaller ones here as well. So that's done with the smaller daffodils and a little bit of a, instead of a pearl bead, I've used a little sparkly bead in the center there. So as I said, I will pop up some photos of these finished pieces onto our pages a bit later, so you can see what these look like a little closer. And I hope you've learnt something today, and I hope you go off and make loads and loads of daffodils. So again, thank you for joining us today. I hope you've learnt loads. If you've got any questions about anything we showed you in the video today, post a question in the comments with the video. We will be uploading it it will be available to watch back later if you want to watch this again, and we will answer any questions you have. And again, we would love to see what you create with our products, so please join our Facebook groups, share what you make, ask any questions you have, and please send us a message if there's something that you want to see us create in a live session. Please let us know. We'd love your feedback, because we want to show you the things that you want to create. So let us know. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for the team at Katy Sue headquarters for manning all the comments and the chat. And we'll see you again probably in a few weeks. Hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.